Crisaor was born at a strange moment, during his mother's defeat at the hands of a hero known for his valor. As the blade's edge separated the Gorgon's head from the rest of her body, a spurt of blood simultaneously gave life to two beings. One was the winged steed that amazed all with its grace and freedom. The other, Crisaor, emerged with the appearance of a strong man, wielding a golden sword that gleamed as if it contained its own light. From the beginning, many turned their attention to the steed that rose into the air, but few noticed the warrior who remained on solid ground. However, those who did see him felt that an aura of power and mystery surrounded him. He needed no wings to show himself majestic. Standing with his sword raised high, he presented himself as a demigod with a particular destiny, marked by the heritage of his father, the great Poseidon. Crisaor possessed three gifts that made him unique. The first was the golden sword, forged from a metal unknown to humans and which emitted flashes even in darkness. The second lay in his strength, superior to that of any common man, capable of bringing down walls or lifting great rocks. The third was a special affinity with ocean currents. Even without being a full god, he could navigate the vastness of the ocean without ever losing his way. They say the waves opened before his passage and led him to safe harbor whenever he set foot on a vessel. After his birth, Crisaor traveled westward, driven by an impulse that some attributed to his father's call. He followed dusty roads and crossed valleys until he reached a vast and fertile region, with a coastline bathed by an imposing sea. There he encountered a bright-eyed young woman named Callirrhoe, daughter of the Titan Oceanus. She observed Crisaor with curiosity when she saw him cross the river that marked the boundary of those lands. Upon noticing the golden sword, she understood that this was no simple mortal. One afternoon, as the sun descended behind the hills, Crisaor approached Callirrhoe on the shore of a lake. She was sitting on a rock with her feet touching the water. Without preamble, he spoke. "You are the daughter of a Titan," said Crisaor. "I can feel the strength of the waters that surround you. You too carry the power of the sea in your blood," she replied, tilting her head slightly. "I notice it when the waves whisper your name." Callirrhoe was impressed by the sword's brilliance. It was not merely a beautiful object, but seemed to pulse with its own energy. She understood that its bearer came from a powerful lineage, a mixture of gods and earth. Thus, through conversations at dusk, a closeness was born that soon transformed into affection. Crisaor won the young woman's trust with sincere gestures and a serene countenance, though sometimes distant. With the passing of months, Callirrhoe accepted him as her husband. From this union would be born Geryon, a being of impressive appearance, 3 bodies joined at the waist, and a strength that surpassed even his father's. Geryon's growth was rapid, and when he became an adult he established himself on the island of Erythea, beyond the Pillars of Hercules. There he raised a herd of red cattle and governed with severity, but also with a certain sense of justice inherited from Callirrhoe. For his part, Crisaor decided to found a settlement on the Iberian coast, a place that rose on a cliff overlooking the sea. At first it was just a camp, with wooden walls and a couple of huts to shelter from storms. Over time, the population grew and merchants arrived who traded metals and provisions with passing sailors. Crisaor taught his followers to forge weapons and tools, guided by visions that the ocean gods sometimes showed him. In that nascent city, he erected a sanctuary dedicated to Poseidon at the edge of a cliff. Each solstice, Crisaor offered black bulls in honor of his divine father, hoping to maintain protection over his lands and his people. With the passing years, stories were told of how Chrysaor's prayers sometimes invoked timely rains, or calmed storms that threatened to destroy fishing vessels. While his kingdom prospered, Geryon ruled in Erythea with determination. His cattle, famous for their bright red color and the quality of their meat, attracted greed from many places. It was then that Heracles, the demigod charged with fulfilling 12 labors imposed by King Eurystheus, arrived at the island seeking to steal that herd. Crisaor learned of Heracles' arrival through merchants who heard rumors in the ports. Worried about his son, he departed swiftly for Erythea. When Chrysaor set foot on the island, he found Geryon confident. The three-bodied giant dismissed the danger, sure that his strength would suffice to defeat any intruder. "Father, I appreciate that you have come," he said, "but I need no help. No one will take my cattle from me." "Heracles is no ordinary warrior," warned Crisaor. He offered him his golden sword, the same one he had carried since the day of his birth. "Use this weapon, son. Its brilliance will confuse the enemy." Geryon, conceited by his triple strength, refused it. "My hands are sufficient to break bones and split heads," he replied. Crisaor remained silent, though something within him warned that the outcome would not be favorable. He left the island with an uneasy heart and returned to his kingdom, awaiting news that would never be good. The confrontation between Heracles and Geryon occurred on a plain near the coast. The demigod, armed with his bow and arrows smeared with the poisonous blood of the Hydra, aimed at his opponent's 3 torsos and shot without hesitation. Each arrow found its mark, piercing the giant's defenses. No matter how much strength he possessed, Geryon fell before the relentless poison. The screams echoed across the island and reached Crisaor's ears shortly after, when an exhausted messenger arrived at the coastal city to deliver the ill news. Devastated by the loss of his only son, Crisaor left the throne in the hands of his counselors and undertook a journey back to Erythea. He found Geryon's lifeless body lying among the rocks. Heracles had already departed with the red cattle, thus fulfilling the labor that had been ordered of him. Consumed by rage, Crisaor cursed Heracles' name and decided to pursue him, though some say he never managed to catch up, because Zeus himself intervened to prevent the struggle from escalating beyond what was necessary. Plunged in grief, Crisaor returned to his kingdom without the son he had loved so much. There, he discovered that Callirrhoe also could not withstand the blow of tragedy. Devastated, she submerged herself in the sea and disappeared among the currents, as if she had merged with the waters that had seen her birth. Without family and with a hardened heart, Crisaor reigned in solitude for many years. He became surly, spoke little, and only left his palace to visit Poseidon's sanctuary. Some inhabitants saw him pass with the golden sword sheathed and his countenance somber. With the passage of seasons, a terrible drought struck the region. The fields cracked, crops died, and rivers barely flowed. The people implored their ruler's help, but Crisaor seemed absent. However, one morning, he took the golden sword and marched in silence to the highest mountain. There he knelt, raised the sword toward the sky, and closed his eyes. For 9 days, he neither ate a bite nor drank a drop of water. He only opened his lips to invoke Poseidon and beg mercy for his people. The people tell that, on the 10th day, dark clouds gathered over the summit and thunder shook the air. A tremor shook the valley, and deep cracks opened through which springs burst forth. Water flowed through the dried riverbeds and reached the fields, restoring life to them. Chrysaor, exhausted, descended from the mountain without saying a word. That same night, in the sanctuary, a black bull was offered in honor of Poseidon. After that event, the accounts of Chrysaor become diffuse. Some assert that he departed for unknown places, sailing out to sea in a solitary vessel. Others affirm that he ventured into the mountains and was lost forever among the forests. There are also those who say he ascended to heaven by his father's hand, transformed into a distant constellation. Be that as it may, ancient chroniclers left no definitive account of his end. What was recorded was the mark of his reign on the Iberian coasts and the memory of his lineage interrupted with Geryon's death. With the passing of centuries, Chrysaor's presence in Greek myths was reduced to a few lines in the most ancient poems. His golden sword, his bonds with the waters, and his brief encounter with Heracles remained as testimonies of a demigod who was born amidst violence and died, shrouded in solitude. Without having the renown of other heroes, he lived and acted in a world where gods and humans shared the same soil, weaving stories that joined one with another. Thus concludes the story of Crisaor, the warrior of the golden sword.